Hey, this is Kyle and Adam at ProjectionHub, and we are back with another episode of answering the SBA burning questions that everyday startups and business owners have. As I said, my name is Kyle. I lead the business plan services here at ProjectionHub, and Adam, the owner and founder of ProjectionHub, was a former SBA lender for a long time. So we are going to use his kind of sage wisdom and experience to answer today's burning question. And the question I have for Adam today is, why do some SBA lenders prefer using a 7A loan for a project versus a 504 loan? So as Adam's, as you're answering that, probably should give some context as to what those programs are. So if someone is starting or buying or expanding a business out there and they're unfamiliar with the different SBA programs, what cases would make most sense, and then why SBA lenders prefer them.
If you hear, someone says, I'm going to get an SBA loan, or you hear an SBA lender and it's a bank lender, you're probably talking about a SBA 7A lender. That's the most common, SBA loan program. The 504 program is a different SBA program that is particularly, most commonly used for real estate. And so the 7A program is a lot more flexible. It can be used for, working capital, kind of any normal business use, but the mechanics of the two loans are a little bit different. And oftentimes the typical SBA lender that you'd be working with out there would prefer the SBA 7A loan over the 504. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, the most common thing that I usually say is that the 504 loan is more complicated because there's actually two different lenders involved. So there's the typical structure would be a 50, 40, 10%. So 50% would be a bank lender. So, pick a JP Morgan Chase, for example, could be the 50% lender. And then there is a 504 lender that does 40% of the total project. And then you, as the owner, put in 10% equity. That's the normal structure. And that 40% is the portion that is guaranteed by the SBA. The 50% is not guaranteed by the SBA. It's just a traditional bank loan.
Oh, so that 50% is not even an SBA, like that's not the bank's portion of a 7A loan or whatever other SBA loan. It's just like a straight up conventional loan that they would make into the project.
Yeah. So the advantage for the lender there is that they're in first position. So like the JP Morgan Chase in that example, they're in first position on this real estate asset, and the SBA lender, the CDC that's doing the 40%, would be in second position. So, Chase would still be in a good position on the deal. So that's the upside for them, but it isn't guaranteed. So what that ends up meaning is that the bank is going to have to hold that loan on their balance sheet. They're not able to sell that 50% portion of the loan on the secondary market. And that is what a lot of kind of national big SBA lenders, that's what they do with the 7A program. Because with the 7A, let's just say typically it's 75% guaranteed. So if you do a $1 million loan, the bank makes let's say JP Morgan Chase makes that $1 million loan, it's 75% guaranteed by SBA, which means they can sell that on the secondary market and earn a premium right away. So let's say that premium is 10%. They get to earn that income right away, which this all flows into kind of follow the money, follow the incentives. But because the bank can sell that portion of the loan, they earn that income right away. They get the cash to, for that premium sale. Then they can pay their loan officer like a bonus on that. And a lot of times then they can also pay a referral partner a commission or a referral fee. On 504, if you're not selling it and you're just holding that loan for 20, 25, 30 years, you don't get this big influx of cash. So there's probably no bonus on it. There's no referral fee on it, or less commonly so. So what I've found is that, a lot of lenders are like, I don't really like doing 504. Well, it's really because the real reason is, one, it's more complicated, but it's also like you don't get compensated the same way.
But an interesting angle, like, we're not lenders. We're not lenders anymore, right? Like we help people prepare for lending, like prepare for loans, find loans, try to get those loans closed. So it's also important to us, to go after a loan product or loan structure that has a higher degree of getting approved, or that there's a lender out there that wants it. But also the other side of that is you want the loan structure to be the optimal fit for like the client, for like the project they're going to do, right? So like you said, 504 is a great option for real estate, or like big pieces of equipment, or things that would make sense to, because 504 loans oftentimes are a longer term, they're a lower fixed rate, right? So there are components of a 504 loan that if they can get it done, they're probably very advantageous for the borrower itself, right? So
Yeah.
the end goal, if they can get the loan done, it's probably puts them in a really good spot. So it's like, how do you navigate that tension between what's best for the applicant or the borrower, and also like, well, I got to find a lender who will actually do it, right? Because
Yeah.
they're a little bit at odds of each other.
Right. Right. So yeah, if you think about the best lenders are going to be the ones that have the most options and most loans to work on. So if you have two loans to work on that are equally complex, one is 7A, one is 504, the best lender is going to work on the 7A loan because they're going to get paid more on that probably. And so if, part of what you might need to be thinking through is, as the borrower is like, if I'm having trouble finding someone willing to do this 504 structure, then, you know, if it's important to just get it done, just get the deal done, I've heard, of clients that will do a 7A loan to get the building built or acquire the building or whatever, use a 7A to start with. And then after a few years, you could refinance either to a traditional loan or to a 504 loan at a lower rate. And so, you know, there may be some good reason to do it that way. If time is of the essence, like if you need to get this thing done, 7A is probably the way to go.
Yeah. Do you, for someone, let's say someone's listening to this and they're willing to be patient, or they're willing to be like, it's 504 or bust, right? Like that's their end goal because for whatever reason. How would you consult them? Like where do they look for that? Like I'm familiar with the 504 lenders, right? The CDCs. Is it best to seek them out directly and let them quarterback the deal? Or is it pretty much any given good SBA lender should be willing to, or have people on the team that can help facilitate that? Like how do you find, like you can find a 7A loan pretty much anywhere if you talk to the right lenders, but what about the 504 ones? Where do you find those ideally?
Yeah, I would. So from my experience, the CDC lenders typically say like, oh, the bank lender, the lender that's doing the 50% is usually kind of owning the deal and brings it to the CDC that's doing the 40%. But I think you could go straight to the CDC and say, hey, I don't know who's a good bank lender for who likes this kind of deal. And I think there you may end up getting served better because you go to the 504 lender, they're gonna say, well, okay, I've worked with this bank that has done a deal like this in the past with us, and we know their process and whatnot. So I think that may end up being actually a better way to go in many cases. I think the other thing about 504 is you need to be willing to spend a long period of time and also meet some other benchmarks like job creation. So it's not just the timing component, it's also like you may not even qualify. And on the flip side, some clients I've worked with, the only way they can get their deal to cash flow is the lower rate 504 loan. And so you're kind of like balancing these, like, well, I want to build this thing that's cost $3 million, but the only way it cash flows is if I get this lower rate. So you may be forced into 504 that way.
Right. So more of the moral of the story might be 7A gets you started. It gets the wheels turning, but maybe 504 becomes the longer term thing you're trying to turn that into, if it makes sense at some point.
Yeah.
Well, if you're out there today and you're watching this and find yourself in this position of what kind of loan program, especially if you are watching this video, that means you've probably heard of a 504 loan, which means you've probably ran into these exact same questions. Maybe it's like, lenders won't talk to me about a 504, or I can't find one, but I think that would be the best structure. And you would like, Adam's take on that, you can go down to the description. We offer a free SBA review, so you can share with us a little bit about your situation. And then, Adam might have some ideas on loan structures or other potential lenders who'd be willing to take a look or something like that. But it is a tricky situation. I have stood inside of some businesses that have been funded by 504, and a lot of times the thing that sticks out to me is that they are big. There's a lot of construction that was involved. There was lots of equipment. And so I just know that there's a lot of moving parts there. So, all right, there we have it. Answered another burning question. And we will see you on the next one. Thanks.